first to sit out since he took office in Congress in 1987. The Georgia congressman told NBC's Chuck Todd in an exclusive interview on Meet the Press that he feels the circumstances of his election are, quote, not right.
I don't see this president-elect as a legitimate president. I think the Russians participated in helping this man get elected, and they helped destroy the candidacy of Hillary Clinton.
Joining me now is Marc Morial, President and CEO of the National Urban League. Marc, thank you so much for coming this morning.
Good morning.
So first question, do you agree with Congressman Lewis?
Well, John Lewis is one of the great Americans of our generation. He's a personal hero. He's a friend. He's someone whose opinion I would not challenge. But what his statement underscores, I think, and this is a point, is why we need a bipartisan effort, a complete examination of the role of Russia in the last election cycle, because it's dangerous and people have missed the point. The point is not simply, did it have an impact on the election? The question is, did they attempt to have an impact on the election? And if they did it, then it constitutes espionage. Then it constitutes something that all Americans should be concerned about, any interference with our elections process. So the air needs to be cleared, and it's not going to be cleared unless there's a thorough examination, either a select committee, a bipartisan commission of citizens, with the full power to examine all of the facts and to do it in a public fashion.
There are just days before the inauguration. Does Donald Trump deserve the opportunity to go into office without the accusations of illegitimacy clouding his presidency before he even gets into office?
I don't think you can sort of just drop the issue with Russia simply because there's an inauguration taking place. Certainly the president-elect will become the president. He simply is going to have to govern. What I think would be good is if he would embrace the idea of a full and complete examination, indicate that he's going to fully cooperate with it, because it's a bit of he who protested too much. I think by continuing to protest it, and I understand one might feel they're trying to delegitimize his presidency, but this is bigger than Donald Trump. This is about the American system of democracy, whether our elections are going to be elections that Americans participate in. If we don't, if you will, air all the facts with respect to Russia, what we are going to face in the future is not only Russia, but other nations having, if you will, campaign office inside of the American democratic system. That's unacceptable. That's not what we want. We should not tolerate any interference in our elections process. There's enough there to warrant, I think, a complete and full examination. And I think cooperating around the examination is in the best interest of the country. There's been suggestions that other countries may have sought to influence our elections process. If that's the case, let there be air, let there be light, let there be transparency about that. We deserve to know.
Marc, I want to ask you about today's march to the MLK Memorial. And what is the first course of action that you would like to see the Trump administration do that will signal to you that it will fight for equal rights and justice?
I think a strong commitment to enforce civil rights laws, whether it is the Voting Rights Act, and I think a commitment not only to enforce the existing Voting Rights Act, but a willingness to work with us on a bipartisan fix to the damage done by the Supreme Court in the Shelby case. Secondly, I think economic opportunity for inner city America. We've come a long way since the recession of 2007, 8, and 9. However, unemployment remains high, wages remain continually stagnant. I'd like to see a plan, a bipartisan plan. We're willing to work along with anyone who wants to put a plan together to meaningfully create job opportunities and upward mobility, particularly for young people who reside in America's not only urban communities, but I think there are areas of poverty and distress in suburban and rural America. There's a chance here. So we'd like to see a commitment around civil rights and economic opportunity, not only from the new administration and the new cabinet, but I think from both sides of the aisle in the Congress. Dr. King and his message went beyond politics. It went to justice, and morality. This march today is a reaffirmation by all of us principles that Dr. King fought for, and those principles have inspired so many of us and guided the work of many. It's a reaffirmation. It's a time for recommitment.
Let's talk about this moving forward, though. You and your other civil rights leaders have voiced your concerns about Senator Jeff Sessions' past as it relates to allegations of racism. So take a listen to one of his supporters, what they said during the hearing this week.
If you disagree with Senator Sessions because of his political views, let's have a conversation about that. But let's do it on the facts, not on 30 years of old innuendos and allegations that have been disproven. After 20 years of knowing Senator Sessions, I have not seen the slightest evidence of racism because it does not exist. I know a racist when I see one, and I've seen more than one, but Jeff Sessions is not one.
So after hearing this kind of sentiment, what is the disconnect?
I think the disconnect is it's not about, quote, whether Senator Sessions is a racist. It's about whether we can trust Senator Sessions, should he become Attorney General, to aggressively enforce the civil rights laws, to use the power of the Justice Department to fulfill the mission of the Justice Department and the mission of the work that's taken place over the last 50 years. That is really the issue. This is not about personality. It's not about whether we like someone or whether someone is polite or gentlemanly. This is more about the record. So I think the hearings, I don't think provided any of us with any additional evidence, and I think it's more than 30 years ago. I mean, I note his vote against Loretta Lynch. I note the fact that he opposed retroactivity of the crack cocaine disparity reduction bill. Those sorts of things raise important questions. Now, should he be confirmed, I think we'd like to encourage him to strong signals to all of us that that Justice Department is going to continue. There are now consent decrees in Baltimore, consent decrees in Chicago. There's a police community initiative that's taking place under the Obama administration. We'd like to see him continue that. We'd like to see him aggressively ensure that those cities that have made commitments to police reform carry out those reforms, and there's not an effort to either undo those efforts, those consent decrees, or to some extent weaken the power of the Justice Department in enforcing these laws.
Marc Morial, great to have you here, and
Thank
we are
you.
going to be covering the MLK March later today.